From underneath Jesse's truck today, it's paranormal something for the other people and things. How are you doing, homeless guy? And Jesse's just drooling in the corner.
Like that, dude.
Dude,
Like
no.
that.
You just go out there and just like, I see you moved in with Bigfoot.
What? Nah, fuck.
Nah, dude, fuck that. He's not out here. He's on the other side of the valley. Fucking drew a line straight down it.
Oh man.
And with that,
Are we on?
we're on.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
but-
Okay, here we are.
Yeah, that
Hey,
was-
you're gonna delete that, right?
not that time.
Oh man.
Not that time. Well, now that Jesse's not here, I guess you guys will have done your research.
Yeah.
I mean,
Excellent.
like I said, I watched the things you sent me.
Excellent.
There wasn't a
Well,
lot of research to find Patrick in 19 or 18. Was it? Wait,
Nope.
1920?
it was, yeah, so in the 1920s.
Prohibition.
Yeah. Okay, so we were talking about Albert Ostman. I guess he was a
Heavily
trapper.
accented fellow
Yeah.
who got abducted by some folks with a hypertrichia
Only-
or whatever that, and then really didn't like his experience with the family
See,
and
it's
made
really,
a rude story about it.
it's really funny. So Albert Ostman went on a prospecting or fishing
He
expedition.
was a 1920s fishing and rock hound. So
Yes.
he was out there hippieing before they had time to develop their science.
Yeah, so he was going up to, I believe, the Toba Inlet.
The Topa Inn. I've been there. They
Not-
have nice comforters.
The
But man,
toupee? I don't need one yet.
Oh,
but
man, what is
soon.
it called? Now I can't even remember what it's called.
where's your notes, man?
Man, this time I didn't bring the notes, you know?
Oh man.
I was hoping that you guys would have done your research. So, you
Oh,
would
so we
tell-
gotta fill in the
So
rest
we
of-
could fill in the research.
No, I mean, I know what happens.
Yeah, give him a summary of a.
All right,
nice
so-
down and dirty.
I'll tell you guys the
Oh.
whole story. Let me, as if we were, you know.
Hypertrichosis, that's it.
So Albert Ostman, our hero of the story,
I don't know if I'd call him
wants
a
to
hero.
go on a little expedition up to, he was looking for some gold, who knows what he wanted to find. Anyway, he went up to British Columbia, and he was gonna got told by a Native American up there that there's some place where there's a lot of gold, but you better watch out because there's Sasquatch afoot. And he's just like, what? In 1924 or 1925, I believe.
No, they were called like little devils or something like
Yeah,
that.
what
or the-
Sasquatch wasn't a thing then, right?
Yeah,
they were
well, there's
calling
a-
it the land
Yeah.
of devils. Or
Yeah,
something.
that was
And
because it was
creatures around here.
but they knew, they were like, there's like certain types of creatures that are up there. They, they're hairy, tall, scary. Better watch out. And
they weren't
and,
creatures. They called them people.
I mean, yeah.
They said they were people.
Okay, they say that they're
They
people.
were just big furry people.
Yes, but isn't that what they describe? Isn't that what we would consider Bigfoot? Is Bigfoot not a people?
I think he's an ape.
I
Is he
think
not part of the ape family.
That's what they consider, but they say that they look like human enough.
I would think he would fall in the class of. Oh, I don't know what the classes of apes are.
Well, this
but-
is there's only, I feel like it's just ape.
No, there's quite a
There's
bit.
like
I think.
greater apes. And
Yeah, there's like
Well, okay,
the scientific.
You want the great apes, as in
Marsupials.
the only three great apes that I think there are.
No. Marsupial says no.
Yeah, there's only 3 or 4 great ape types, I think, and that'd be orangutan, gorilla, human, and I don't even know if we'd be considered apes at all.
No, but like chimps and like howler monkeys, like those are different types, right?
Well, yeah, that's because a howler monkey is a monkey.
Because there's
A
apes,
chimp-
apes and monkeys are different.
Yeah, so anything that
So
doesn't have a tail. And then there's there's simians and then there's gibbons,
there you
and
go.
those are the lesser apes. That's what you're
And
talking.
there's all sorts of other subgenres of things.
Right. So I think he falls under that umbrella.
You hear me out. You ever seen The Hills Have Eyes?
No, actually I have. Which
Hey,
version?
Austin, there's no-
Unrated?
Either concept's the same. Less blood, but concept's the same. A family that's just been living in the hills, porking, keeping it all in the family.
Well,
But they have a hereditary hypertrichophobia or whatever.
But
they're
didn't the guy say
saying.
he was gigantic? He was like 7 feet.
yeah, no, the male
Yeah,
was
man, they're
8
covered in
foot.
tumors because cancer.
the lady was
the
7
werewolf
feet.
syndrome thing
The-
is related to cancer.
The 2 children were Everybody's always probably just like, why don't they tell the whole story? Because I get all sidetracked by y'all.
Okay. Just give us the quick and dirty.
Okay,
You want me to do it, or you want to?
No, you want to do it? Go for it then.
Okay, here's the story. This Paul, what's his last name again?
His name is Albert
Albert, what's his last name?
Ostman.
There we go. Albert Ostman. Basically, the dude goes. Patrick is just rubbing
Just
his
go
head.
in.
Yeah.
Alberto Ostman.
This is the extreme dirty, not
Yeah.
just
He
nothing.
basically just goes on this like some sort of hunting or expedition.
Yep.
And basically gets trapped by these what we would call, I guess, Bigfoot. Like that's the whole premise of the story
He
right
gets
now.
picked up Jason Voorhees style in
No,
a
he doesn't.
sleeping bag.
No, he doesn't. I know all about Jason Voorhees, and I can tell you that is a no.
I didn't say he got killed Jason Voorhees style. He just got picked up.
Okay, true. So he's camping, and all of a sudden, his sleeping bag gets picked up. He's like, I don't know what the hell's going on. And
Yeah, he's like I'm in a deep sleep, but and I'm trying to remember where I am.
but somehow he was able to determine that it was like what is it? He say, what was it, 4 miles or was it greater?
Oh no, it was greater. He said,
like
Tell me
36
it was
miles.
Every step we went up.
Yeah.
yeah, he was because I think that he was just like, okay, he starts getting jostled away because apparently the Bigfoot, and at this point apparently it was just the main male has found his camp, and he'd been at the camp for a couple days, and he'd noticed some things where like his bag was turned over, and he's like, well, that doesn't seem like a bear. Certain things that he didn't seem to.
A bear can't sling me over his shoulder.
Yeah, like, and,
Could this be a bear?
but so in the middle of the night, of the second night after he's got all these things have happened to his camp, yeah, he's like, okay, I'm being picked up by something, and he's literally just like sack of potatoes to the bottom of his sleeping bag as this thing is hucking him over his shoulder, and like, yeah, and he's
I
like,
could hear him puff.
yeah, he could hear like he was like, okay, this is odd. It's like a coughing, like a kind of a huffing sound, and he was apparently dragged over. He couldn't really. I don't know if he would be able to tell, and he was asleep for some of it.
I think I don't remember hearing that he was asleep because
Well,
like
when he woke up, he was already like
He
in the
thought it was
midst
a
of
fraternity prank for half an hour.
just-
Like, you assholes.
yeah, So, but he's like in a really uncomfortable position for a couple hours while this thing's hucking him around, and he has a sheet knife, and so this is the weird thing. He's like, I have my rifle, like in
Somehow
front of me,
in-
smacking me in the face.
when you
And then-
sleep in a sleeping bag, you always sleep with it strapped to your
Rifle
back.
and knife.
Yeah, but his knife. So
Bad.
his knife had slid down under, like below him, so he apparently couldn't get to it. Which I could.
He couldn't reach past his massive balls to get to his knife, and his rifle
Well,
was
have you
just
ever
too
been-
in his face to do anything.
Have I ever been in a sleeping bag?
And like,
Yes,
yeah,
I
I've been
have.
in a sleeping bag with a bunch of shit in it, and
Not
then
with a
people are
knife and a
slinging it.
rifle?
Yeah, and
Okay,
people
now hear
slinging
me
you
out.
around.
Have you ever
like-
been in a 1920s sleeping bag?
yeah, that's made out of freaking wool and more wool.
I think Austin's looking up what a 1920s
I want to
sleeping
know what
bag-
it looks like. I'm curious. I want to know if he's like in this huge thing or if he's in like a tube sock.
I don't think he's in a tube.
Yeah, I don't
sock.
think it's a tube sock, but obviously like. Because it's like I'm thinking of like 1920s equivalent of like a mummy bag scenario.
Right.
Which makes me think he's in like an entire down mattress.
But he said something about like, so he's like, I can still see. So he's like slid down into his little sleeping bag. He can see like a hole, apparently, where the thing couldn't like keep it completely
Covered,
closed or
right.
whatever. And he's like, I can feel him going up or like stepping down things or over things. He's like, I can feel myself moving. Anyway, he apparently gets dumped out in a little like, I don't know, what do you call it? Like a valley or something that he says?
It was like
he
a
says it's
valley.
like a valley, but they're in an alcove covered by sticks and moss.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
something like that. So he's in like an alcove that he can't necessarily get out, but it sounds like he had semi-free reign, around
Yeah.
the area.
From what I understand, like there was one way in, one
They
way
wanted
out.
to pet Pinky.
Yeah, right. Well,
They picked him up.
well, did you hear? So there's a couple of different resources that we were listening to. One of them was an actual interview. I'm not sure by who about his encounter. I think it was in the 60s,
70s.
but that was when the one was taken.
70s.
Okay. Well, someone in that area, he was interviewed by somebody, and he was talking, and he said that. So there was what he said first was that there were 4 of them, and he was like, I can immediately identify, mother, father, or like elder male, elder female, and then like 2 young ones that he couldn't really determine age, but obviously we're adolescents, male, female. I don't know. He never really said how he was like. I knew it was a female because he said like that the
breast.
Yeah, well, like so the large female, like he could tell that she was a female, but he didn't say anything about like he's like there was a male and another female.
I thought what he did is he just turned them over and blew on their fur.
Yeah,
That's
just
how
it's like classic. He's like, excuse me, things that are, but they're all like
That's a
6
male.
feet tall. Yeah, they're like 6 feet to 7 feet. So I don't know. And that was the other thing too, is he seemed like for a person who just got like literally abducted into the middle of the woods, he probably was more terrified at the time, but by the sound of it, he's like, okay, they have me here. He has a gun, and I think he's only got like 6 rounds or something.
Right.
And in the interview, he was saying how like, he's like, okay, I don't want to shoot my way out. And at this point, they weren't like,
he didn't want to provoke them. He didn't want to make them angry or upset because they had seemed somewhat docile. With
they did, because they brought him, and of course, when you get like, imagine you get like abducted by a monster, essentially.
Right, happens all the time.
Yep. And when it does, you're like, okay, well, he's not eating me right away. Maybe we could hash some things out. Maybe we,
If anything, I think that's more terrifying, man.
Yeah. Where you're like, okay,
what's their intention?
Yeah.
Are they trying to fatten me up, or are they keeping me as a pet? Do they not know what they've done?
Oh, it's weird too, yeah, because it seems like he's like, yeah, they would chatter together, but they would never really like.
Didn't they feed him too?
No, he was making his own food apparently because he'd had like food.
I thought they brought him like berries.
No, yeah, you're right. I think he was like the adolescent was like would bring me like these weird sweet roots or something, and like he saw like during the day the mom would be gone for like a long time, and then she'd come back with like moss and sticks and all these nuts that he said that he had seen all over the British Columbia area or Vancouver area. So I don't know, but it's interesting because the way that he describes it, obviously he's like, it's like human animal. Yeah, like he wasn't ever really describing them as animals, and he was like, okay, I'd heard that the Native American lore up there seemed to, what you were saying is that they classify them more as people and less of an animal, which, Native American lore often does.
Which I'm just going to say, because...
Well, don't you think it?
But I don't know. That's a thing that would be an objective fact. I'm not going to think what it was.
Okay, well, I mean, for the most part, like, every time you hear about, like, Native Americans bringing, like, that into their lore, it's always that it's, like, a brethren spirit of the woods kind of thing.
Yeah, but they just said people.
Yeah.
Them's just people up there.
Well, I mean, like, but what would you, I mean, they say that it looks exactly like people. So okay, I'm guessing though that you're like, all right, you were saying something about people with a disease that makes their hair grow more.
Yeah. Well, hold on, before we get into that. So the guy escapes, right?
Yes, okay. So he comes up he devises this plan that he's like, okay, they were.
Gets him addicted to tobacco.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, they were like,
remember.
yeah, because they were like interested in his like snuff box or whatever, and he's like, okay, I'd take a pinch every once in a while, and then I was like, maybe I can. I don't know. He was like, maybe I'll get him sick off of this or something, and so apparently the main male kind of has been distant for the few days that he's been there, but he keeps getting closer, and the younger male is kind of the one that's like the emissary between them. It seems like he's more. He was, because the younger one's the one that's always like curious. He's coming up.
Please approach the throne, the emissary for Crown Squatch.
But he's like bringing the guy stuff, and like the older ones seem to be, they're obviously doing their own thing, and I think the male's like not interacting with him very much, but the younger one is. So now he's got the younger one's attention with the snuff box, and he gets the attention of the older one, and the older one just
wants some blow.
Yeah, basically
he wants some blow.
So he's doing it, and he was apparently like he's like making it sound better than it was, smacking his lips and being like this
here old time.
Yeah, slapping that tin,
What a delicious flavor.
Yeah, dude, you got that grizzly wintergreen.
Can I interest you in some?
Yeah, so essentially,
As he lifts his his cargo pant leg up a little bit.
Yeah,
Could
just
I
like,
interest you in some tobacco?
have you kids ever smoked before?
Exactly. So they bring out the tobacco, or the guy's, he's like, okay, well, I don't want him to like knock it all over, right? 'Cause
Don't
he's
forget, you're forgetting to set up an important piece of plot.
Oh,
He
yes.
brewed coffee that morning.
Ah,
Keep
yes.
going.
The coffee
Because
was
nobody ever mentions that happened. He's just like, also, I brewed coffee.
well, because yeah, it was super funny because yeah, he's like,
They brought all of my things, so I brewed some coffee.
well, right? Because like in the initial story, yeah, he's like, okay, so I had some stuff that was just like I still had in my pack when they friggin' stole me away, and
I
it was
brought all
like,
my weapons, all of my coffee supplies, my tobacco, pretty much everything I'd need to be comfortable.
yeah.
It was wild.
and like he still has his sheet knife because that was still in the bottom of his bag. He never really explained what happened to
Strapped
that.
to his sock.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's got like 6 rounds in it. But at some point he's like, okay, I made the coffee, or he's made the coffee. He's having his little breakfast, and he notices that these guys are coming over. So he's like, okay, I want to give him the snuff here. So he like holds out the can to kind of be like, yeah, take a pinch or whatever, and the Bigfoot dad essentially takes the whole can and just throws it back and eats the whole thing, like, ooh,
Big chief.
Yeah,
The good stuff.
So yeah, he throws the whole thing back, and apparently after a second or two, he starts to realize that the Bigfoot is not having a good time. So the Bigfoot's like kind of sick, freaking out, and he grabs the coffee. Apparently,
This
and
is just an
down-
episode of a
he
bad
just-
animated
dude,
TV
right?
show.
He
This
just-
is
yeah, dude, you want to? Yeah, like somebody's just like, oh
This
man,
is how Scooby and Shaggy get away from
yeah, dude,
the
they gotta be like,
Sasquatch.
oh man, I gotta leave my pot of, like something nasty right here in a cup that looks normal, and then the guy eats like something really spicy and like,
Yeah.
then chugs fucking nitroglycerin or something.
And then explode.
Yeah, it's like, whoop, that was the wrong thing. So he starts getting sick off the tobacco, slams his morning Joe. The main Bigfoot starts freaking out. The little Bigfoot starts freaking out. He goes over to the mom to freak out, and everybody's freaking out. So he's like, well, I guess it's probably a good time to go. So he starts heading for the exit. He go into the exit, and I believe the female's like
fire a shot
Yeah,
over
the-
the mother.
Yeah, that's what it
the
was.
female's like pursuing him, and they take a shot over the edge, and he gets out, and apparently he's like just he knows some direction. He's like, okay, if I keep going this direction, I'll hit the coast, and
Yeah, he
I'll-
just climbs back in the bag and then gets carried out by a mountain.
It's one of those math problems where every morning he climbs up 2 feet but slides down 1.
Oh no!
that's going to be several.
He climbs
Several
into
days.
a new bag and gets moved a different amount of distance by some other animal.
He's
Right.
like, this is going to be fucking impossible.
I wish I could travel by something other than bag.
I'm gonna need to start cutting some eye holes in this thing. Dude. But yeah, so then he gets away, and apparently doesn't tell his story for. I don't actually know when he
That's-
told his first story.
I
30
think-
years is what the interview
Yeah.
where he's in
So then
said.
yeah, that would be what.
For longer than I've been around,
It was like
this guy
55,
was like,
yeah.
nobody needs to know that I got potato sack carried by Bigfoot and then totally animated TV showed my way out of there.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting too is that he was talking about it, and he's like, one of the reasons why he was like, well, I don't think that I could like, shoot my way out of this situation too, was that he apparently had seen, a gorilla, on some video.
On some video in the
Yeah.
20s?
No. I think it was like, apparently on video in the 20s. I don't know how that works, but
I
at the
thought it
same
was a
time,
newspaper, was it not?
no, I said it was a video or
I
like
thought it was one of the
The film reels? Oh,
Yeah, it was like
because there's like the one of the monkey walking and then the one of the woman stripping, and both of those were at the World Fair in like 1890 or whatever.
Oh, man. Imagine getting the wrong ticket.
Oh,
I think you got both.
dang it! I just saw the monkey.
Yeah, that's not what I want to see.
But yeah, so like he saw, apparently was like, man, I saw that these guys shooting these gorillas with high powered rifles, and they just kept coming. So he's like, I don't think that'll work apparently. So he just only took that shot when he was like being pursued,
Yeah,
and then he never got.
30 wasn't big enough.
Yeah, he
for
never
a
got
monkey.
pursued there, or he never got pursued after that, and then he just made it back down, and apparently went on with his life there, which interesting.
Post foot,
Yeah, I know.
post squatch.
You're like, man, what What a wacky weekend.
The after squatch.
Well, I'm glad I'm back to normal.
Now, that's one thing that I know that they figured out that gorillas were a thing in like the end of the 1800s.
What did they do before that?
That's what I was about to say. Are gorillas not a thing? Did Jane Goodall lie to me?
Well, yeah, but she that's the thing. But yeah, I don't think there was a lot of like, look, this is where, because the gorillas are intensely hard to find, and 2, they're only in like a certain place in the world, and 3, then you got to get a camera there, and then 4, you got to find them and take the picture.
No, you got to
them.
have a doodle. I'm sure plenty of people had sketched them.
I mean, maybe
that's how
but even
science used to go. It'd be like, you've seen in the Great
Have
Ape.
you seen the sketch? It's like that. Like it looks like a rabid monster
No.
mouth, and then a tiny round black
nowadays.
head.
The sketch of the lady one just has a pompadour. The one of the links she sent me had a sketch of the lady Bigfoot or whatever, and it just had like a little pompadour.
Yeah. He was trying to describe.
It's like an ape but with a pompadour.
See, I think that's just it's like he's trying to figure out how to describe it. It's like how do I tell? Like, what are ladies? Ladies have that curly do at the front of their face. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that was kind of interesting. That's like, okay, so he classified them more as like these people, but they were obviously doing very like odd things. I don't know. It seemed like they had the same type of family dynamic.
Well, and I mean, the thing is, like, in that time, the thing that kind of gives them somewhat credit is that at that time, you don't know what a lot of things are. Like, I've seen glimpses of coyotes at night, but, I don't. If someone was like, describe it, it'd be harder. But I can go on the internet and be like, yep, that's it,
A small, ugly wolf.
Right?
Bigger dog.
Well,
What is a small, ugly wolf, Alex?
well, and like you think about like now, we have video and stuff, everything, and we know more what's out there. But like then, it's like, okay, you've got to talk to the local guides, and they're like, hey,
Plus, didn't he live in like kind of a remote area? Like he wasn't like in a super populated area.
I'm not sure because I'm not sure where.
Weren't super populated,
but I thought
especially in Canada.
Because he had ventured out from where he had already lived.
Right.
So it wasn't like anywhere near here where he was. He went up like I think it was the Toba Inlet or some inlet up there that he was. Yeah. So he hired a guide, got up there, and then got captured.
Right.
And he said that he didn't think that the Bigfoot were like this. They were staying there. Like it was not they were like more nomadic, and this was like a weird temporary spot that they had hashed out.
Yeah, but I mean, how would you even know that? Like, how would you even? Because to me, that sounds
especially when they stayed there the whole time he was there.
Well, yeah, but only 6 days. And I think that he was saying something about like he was like, well, maybe these like the seasonal roots,
But he just showed up into some random spot, and he's like, well, they must have been on their migration path.
I mean, I don't know.
There wasn't enough feces built up in that little like.
I mean,
valley.
but he is also like
their shit pile's too small.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, dude, whatever. Like trappers, that's the type of thing they look for. They're like, all right, let's see.
Yeah, maybe they had a Bigfoot outhouse.
So you're like, well, no, they definitely Austin,
because they're people.
No, they stayed there.
They were described as people.
I know, but isn't it also they're trying to? I would think it's like. They're avoiding things, and so they're in this little inlet getting these little, the roots that they can find during this type of season, maybe, and it's like their vacation home. It's their, they're like, man, find a nice place on the Vancouver coast, we'll come out.
My supportless speculation is better than your supportless speculation.
I think it's, exactly. Tell me your speculation.
I don't really think it happened, but if it did, maybe it was a weird family that's living in Canada in the 1920s. I don't know.
Did you watch the Bob Gimlin one?
Yeah.
Yeah? And?
That was the worst one because it was only 5 minutes long.
That's like the best points. He's like, things to consider.
I don't like those points.
I loved all of those points.
People were putting pictures of monkeys in magazines as early as 1900, so I'm not like, he couldn't have known what a sagittal crest was. I don't call that a good reason.
I think that because he did describe, I forgot about that. He did describe the
and they've
crest
been in
on the head.
magazines for years, all across.
But
the
as I was
States
saying,
and
but
Canada.
the way that they had shown them was never with an actual ridge crest. Like
it depends who drew it.
What? No, it's but nobody was actually out there like a full on artist rendition. They were. I saw he was like, this is what they looked like in
every
magazines.
single Canadian magazine, or did you see the 2 he showed you in that 5-minute video where he made claims?
The 2 that he showed me in the 5 minutes.
cool.
But where, if you can find me one that's like, oh look, this is where they've shown the sagittal crest or whatever. If you can find that, you could show it to me.
It provided you 2.
Mm-hmm. You've provided me none, so
yeah, because I have them in
Where?
those magazines.
Somebody
Show
slide
me
me that knife over here.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah. Slide the knife over here. Slide me the magazine. We'll cut out the picture and we'll look at it.
goodness.
That's what I thought.
I mean, I'm listening.
Is that
Yeah, but-
conclusive at that point? So you're just like, this thing, this is it.
It's
This is my hill.
I have 2 more pictures than you do right now. Where's your pictures?
You have 2 more. No, a
Also-
different guy has 2 more pictures than you do.
Okay,
You
well-
didn't do that.
Well, he's my picture representative.
He's my picture guy.
Yeah, he's my picture guy. I love Bob Gimlin. If anybody wants, check out Bob Gimlin on YouTube. It's like
I'm sure he talks about loads of other bull that you'll just
oh
love.
no,
if
he
you're on
does,
Pat's side
and
of
it's not
this.
bull. It's not bull. He has one where he talks about the Australopithecus versus like great ape theory or whatever, or hominid versus hominin theory.
Okay.
It's actually really interesting. And it has science. That
Synonym
Austin
for
will
antonym.
a lot of facts Austin will not like, especially when he's like, "This was the worst video." Actually, I thought it was the best video because it had a lot of points about describing the Bigfoot and why he thought that they were legitimate.
Points that he didn't even remember until I brought them up.
Well, yeah,
Just saying.
You know how much I read?
About 45 minutes worth.
No, sir.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is why we need Jesse, dude. He throws off the whole
Yeah.
whole recipe.
Oh, if you want, I could do that. You know.
No. We don't need that. We don't need that from you.
Start jeweling more, Michael. We're
Yeah.
going to need jeweling, magnetic sounds. I'm going to need random statements about TV shows no one's watching anymore.
Just like
Yeah.
my truck could
Episodes
run
of-
into that Bigfoot family, no problem.
Episodes of River Monsters that aired in 2012.
Those are good episodes.
Dude, and they're not even real monsters. God damn it.
Giant catfish.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that would scare the fuck out of me.
Okay, so the thing that's weird to me is that he didn't talk about it for like the 30 years or whatever, and like I get why
Well,
you wouldn't.
He said that not that he didn't talk about it, but he didn't come to like, he didn't go like, let's go find the main news media. He was like, well, I would tell this story around the campfire and people would be like, nah. But he said something about, he just like talking to those like natives that he was just like, okay, because he saw the exact same thing. He was like, well, maybe they were around, thousands of years ago, but like now, like, what are you talking about?
1863.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound so a sagittal crest.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Literally on all 3 of
No, it
those.
does not.
Look.
No, it doesn't. See, that's not. That shows, okay, they have a round head, round head, round head. The only one that looks like a crest is that one. And he described.
Okay, so now
he
you're an expert on
Yes, I
sagittal
am.
crests.
No, you see,
because
that's a
you've seen
gorilla.
2
That's
photos.
a gorilla. No, this is a third picture. You've shown me one, so now we have one.
but it's got
so 2 for
multiple
me, 1
different
for you.
apes.
And this was circa what?
1863. You think
18
between 1863 and 1920, no one was like,
Don't worry, we'll put
Do you
this up
know
on the show
monkeys
notes so people
have-
can make their own. Just Austin, you're doing this on Wikipedia. What you can't
because it's Huxley. You can look at
Wikipedia.
the source. Your source is a dude on YouTube.
Yes, whose name is Bob Gimlin, and he does amazing work.
No,
Go subscribe. Honestly,
Hey, no plugging, man.
it's not for me.
Until Bob Gimlin gives us a shout out,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think
Bob
that's
Gimlin,
fair.
please give us a shout out.
And also shout out Thomas Henry Huxley because he's dead as hell.
Well, yeah, see, yeah. Well, who's really winning now? Bob Gimlin's still alive.
Okay, and so he's not telling people for X amount of time, and all of a sudden he decides to come out. Did it ever say why he decided to be like, I'm going to tell my story worldwide?
Well, I'm wondering because I know that one of the interviews, the one that we had or that I put up on the show notes said it was from like the 60s or something.
Right.
That was after, and he was a part of he was a part of like a panel of different people who were getting interviewed about this sort of thing, and it was like Roger Patterson or Robert Patterson, whichever one it is. He's the guy who filmed the Bigfoot in
Right.
68.
The famous Bigfoot
Yeah, you know,
one.
the Patterson
it's
Gimlin
walking.
footage.
Where you can clearly see the zipper down the back.
Oh, yeah. You know that's not true.
Hey man, I don't know.
How do you? You can't put a zipper on skin.
Back in like 2000, I watched UPN special on hoax or fact, and that video came up.
Damn,
where's your
UPN. Sorry.
How many
keep
pictures
going.
did they have on that?
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, they had the whole
Do you
video.
know what the sagittal crest was?
No, I think they covered that in the Yeti one, way down the line. 'cause
Yeah, you mean
they had
the
that
one-
Yeti.
Yeah,
I do remember when they like
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
debunking thing where they just had a lanky guy come in and do the walk.
Well, they
And
thought
they're
it was
like,
this
"Man."
guy. From
Yeah,
what I
they thought-
remember, it was like
yeah.
a specific guy, and they filmed him walking, and they're just like, "Look, it matches up perfect. The same style, the same
Yeah, that was
flail
like-
of the
Person
hand."
can do the.
Yeah, there's like it's super weird
Exactly.
because I've gone back so many times. I've been back and forth on whether I believe the Patterson Gimlin footage, you know, and I'm like I do and I don't at the same time. You know,
I've heard that there's more like hoax behind it, evidence of hoax.
that's what I have heard that too. You know, like from the one guy, they're like that's the guy who was in the suit.
Right.
I don't, you know, I've looked into those like connections between the people. Okay, you know, anybody could write that they knew each other or something, you know, like I don't know how to corroborate that.
Right.
So,
Well, see, what gets me is that, like, okay, so you take Loch Ness Monster, and then the person who, like, didn't the person who first, like, took that picture was,
Yeah, that was-
on their deathbed, they're like, that was a hoax.
well, yeah,
We
because
totally
then
did that."
they put like a little toy boat in there and it was like a problem of perspective.
Or something like that,
Yeah.
yeah. And then people are just like, no, it still exists. So my issue is, like, with the very first, like, evidential thing, you have these people who are just like, I totally made it up. And then people are like, no, we went off of this. And then we went hunting for Loch Ness and we found Loch Ness.
Well, it could be the other way around too. Or like there's a real thing that then starts that makes somebody. So there's the
I guess that's true.
Do you remember
too.
so there's a Bigfoot incident where I believe there was like loggers, right? And it was when
footprints, right?
Yeah, they'd seen these logs and they had a bunch of like Bigfoot prints around their logging area and stuff had been moved around and like thrown about and they're like, what the hell?
There's Bigfoot piss all
So
over.
they yeah,
the
so they
forklift.
Everybody knows
Yeah.
Bigfoot piss smells awful.
yeah, dude, they're like, Bigfoot. But so they found this track, and then after that, there was all this weird, like, hype
Right.
and everything, and then they were like talking how the foreman started making his own, like, so they found like they're like, here's the original.
Ah, what the hell?
Oh no,
COVID.
No, it's because I pet the cat.
Anyway, the foreman is just like, he
He
starts
was
making
like-
the prints.
Yeah, and he's like, this is a great, like whatever, and he just starts going there and just started making fake prints, and everybody's like, oh, there's more. But then they see, they're like, look, it's the same. Like the first one was like very, like what you'd expect from a print, kind of jagged, kind of like Bigfooty.
Right.
And then the next ones are really like, like always defined, like feet imprints, like somebody just.
Like almost too perfect.
Yeah, and then you can see the guy he actually has a picture of himself with his like casts of like the fake footprints that he made.
Right.
And that he would go around and it was like, it's too perfect. The other ones are like, yeah, they got weird. Because every time I see it, it looks like a weird hand, right? Like it's got that weird Bigfoot toe and then like a weird gap between like all the rest. So it's kind of almost got like opposable thumb on its foot,
Right.
the way it looks.
Well, okay, and here's the other thing too. Like, if he has that knife in his sack, going back to this dude, Albert Bigfoot Ian, and he has that knife in his sack. Like, why? First of all, why doesn't he cut the bag or the sack, right?
Well,
and if he can't reach it,
yeah. He said he was like, what I'm guessing is so like when he he's sleeping, like. For all that you can't, I'm planking right now.
yeah.
And anyway, so you go from a plank, and then somebody picks you up, and you slide kind of down. And what it sounded like is he was slid down into the sack and was kind of kneeling, and all the stuff was kind of underneath his like shins and his feet. And
So he should be able to reach it, man. That's like perfect.
I do understand where I'm like, okay, I should be able to shift around in a bag, but I also don't know. I've never been a 30-year-old man being carried by an 8-foot giant through
I'm sure few people, if anyone, ever
yeah,
has.
yeah, exactly. So, how who are we to say that he couldn't reach the knife? I was always wondering why he didn't
Could I
do
ask
something with it. Okay, yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
No,
I was
you're
just going to
allowed.
ask the question for every one of these cryptozoology ones. So how are they burying every single bone that's ever dropped off of one of these
my God.
40 feet deep so no one will ever find it or any remains
I've heard
of any kind?
where they're like, their remains was like, okay, well, we bury our dead. And then also,
And
what
they
about...
show up after that all the time.
Do they?
Way more often than
Maybe
you
what
want.
we're doing is we're finding fossils and we're like, look, Archaeopithecus.
And they're just building them wrong. And
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that did happen a lot early on, but that's because it was very profitable to have dinosaurs show up at museums.
I just
so
think
they were
that
just
they,
taping
I
stuff
think
together.
that they've been around for a long time and they just know how to avoid people. And I also hear that it's like even bear carcasses, you don't just find, you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
dead bear body.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like, how many like people or like kids or whatever go missing in these like big forests?
But we're not looking for one Timmy Jenkins. We're looking for one.
But they never
of
find
any
his
single
body.
member of a species.
Yeah.
So this isn't finding specifically Timmy Jenkins. This is finding any dead kid.
Right.
And that happens all the time.
No, because I feel like there's a lot of things where they like the family just wants closure and they like either find like a piece of clothing, but they never find like a body to be like, okay, he's gone. He's gone. You know what I'm saying? So like,
Well, yeah, because then it's like you could be like, like say the
But they'll find
Bigfoot,
random
say the
bits of bodies.
Not
bones.
always.
Not,
And then
I'm not saying always. I'm
Right.
saying the fact that there has never been
well,
a
actually,
single.
there apparently have been bodies that they've found, but nobody. They're
But-
always like they take a piece of the evidence and then they're just like, this doesn't, because they're trying to match it with known DNA. So
Right.
like, of course, you're not going to find known DNA of an unknown animal,
I mean, I could see them.
right?
Yeah, then if it was actually a remain, that would be significant. But if they're just like, nah, that's something we don't know, better get rid of it, I don't think it existed.
Okay, but other animals don't. Okay, the theory is right that the Bigfoots bury each other, right? Like that's the thing.
Yeah, or
that
like,
they say.
or they,
Or
or
something
they
like
could
that.
cremate themselves.
No,
Dude, what do you mean?
a big
Yeah.
bonfire.
Yeah.
Okay, I was about to say, which is less likely.
Yeah. I think that's
We
going to give them
haven't
away.
found bones. We haven't found an elaborate funeral pyre used by mountain monkeys.
Also think about, these things are also, I don't know how many, like how sustainable, like what, because like, okay, so it's like, here's a family unit size. And the way that I've heard like primatologists who believe in Bigfoot are like talking how they think that they're more like it'll have like small groups where there's like, the
I mean, Osman here described a nuclear family.
Yeah,
One
I
white
know.
picket fence,
Which
and
is
they could
odd.
have
I
been-
know, which is always like, well, that's why because this is the only time like nobody
The
else.
Bigfoots.
Well, like nobody else has really had like a like one of those experiences where it's
The
just
large
like
feats.
me and my girlfriend were out camping, then all of a sudden I just got our whole tent got dragged out, and then we're just in the middle of a village of Bigfoot. Like that doesn't really
Right.
happen. And then this guy and then they all it's like that. I can tell that's a daughter and a son and a mom and a dad, and it's like okay, like
Right.
I could see where those family units would be like a
She
thing.
had an apron on. He was reading the paper, and the kids were both playing with toy trains.
I mean, essentially, because that's what not really, but like the mom's off doing all the housekeeping stuff, getting all like the, all the. I mean, it's just like the way he described it. Yes, was like
The
the
apron
new.
only said "grrr,"
Was
I
the-
didn't know what that meant, but it did look quite quaint. I think it was home knitted.
Yeah, exactly. I did think they even said that they had made like he was like there's like woven together cedar bark or something that was like. Like made into but so it's like okay, so yes, he's describing that, and then everybody else is like we don't know, but primatologists who believe in Bigfoot are always saying how they're like there's probably like you get
How he's going to give gifts to the kids.
no, but like you're gonna have like those what they think are gonna be like singular roving males, that are like either like
The alpha, pretty much.
the alphas are the ones that have been like outcast and are like kind of roving, looking for like new territory. So in chimp like society, and I think it's the same thing, kind of gorillas, where it's like you'll have a troop, and then like they can have break-offs of that, but usually it'll be like there's
Yeah,
certain
aren't like monkeys and chimps like very like packed animals, aren't they? In a
Well,
sense?
like the troops.
Yeah.
They're sociable.
Regiments.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but because I think it is called like a chimpanzee's
The
called a troop.
4th Bigfoot Regiment.
Right. Well, okay. Here, I could understand how like nobody could find Bigfoot stuff, like maybe here and there. Like if I were a Bigfoot and I was like, okay, like you never want a body to be discovered, so like let's eat the body because like why would that's just animalistic.
And then
No,
use
no,
the
no,
and
no.
then use the bones. You could
do that,
Yeah.
or you could just bury the bones or scatter the bones or whatever. You know, like how many things?
Maybe they have pet
See, but
cougars.
using the bones.
You know, they have pet cougars and they just throw them into the cougar nest and the cougar chews
don't
on
think
them
they
every
have-
once in a while.
I don't
And
know.
then-
that sounds like an
I don't-
episode
and then
of the
people
Flintstones.
then people come into the thing and they're just like, look at all these random animal bones. We should probably get out of here because it's a cougar nest. And then they don't really like analyze the bones.
I mean, that's how I could see it not being, oh, we've discovered Bigfoot bodies. That's, and I mean, you're in the middle of a heavily dense forest.
But
so-
that'd be so whack if
Every
you're just,
extra step to remove bones is an extra step to leave evidence of having removed bones, and we don't have that either.
But in
Yeah,
that,
would you be
in
able
the
to
forest, like you're in, maybe a crime scene downtown. Yeah, it's a little bit harder, but like in an area where people just don't go.
especially if
Whatever.
you've got, and this is the thing too, is that these
Ever.
things, what if these things are like, they've been in the woods for their entire, like, it's not like they're trying to
Okay, but-
navigate themselves around a city. It's like they're in intense wilderness areas.
We have destroyed so much of the wilderness and never come across anything.
Okay, but at the same time, first of all, are you going to
So
be
like every time we start to encroach, they send out the call. They
Yes.
light the Sasquatch fires.
No.
And it's like we got to go pick up every bit of evidence
I do
that we
hear-
exist from the where all them tractors are coming. And then there's just a horde of them rushing through the shallows of the forest, grabbing bones out of the ground and picking up
Not
tripwires.
even.
It's like cutting down their Rambo First Blood
Well, maybe what
traps,
they do
and
is,
then they run back into the forest.
Every once in a while, they go down to the Home Depot, disguised.
no way.
And then they get a bunch of lye, or whatever you call it, lime. What is it?
Lie.
Lye.
I think it's lie.
Yeah, and then they go up and it's just like the fields of lye, and it's just like all of the dead Bigfoots are getting dissolved in it.
Okay, but I feel like if people who are like tearing down the forest, they find a bunch of bones, they're just like, don't tell anybody, just keep going. Like
Actually,
just
that might.
That does happen a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
But
My dad used
as
to.
long as it doesn't, like, it isn't human sized, people will try and sell it. So we would still have that.
Well, not all the time. So my dad told me one time that they found there was a woolly mammoth rib cage during one of his.
And it's expensive to take care of that. So
Well,
I'm sure they either busted it
they
up
put
or
it back.
they
They
put
like
it back.
because
Yep.
they were excavating and they're like, look, there's this thing, and they're like, what are we gonna do? And like, well, we have to develop on this land. So
Yeah, you just incriminated your dad.
yes, he works for.
It happens all the time.
Right.
Though. I tried to get a job where I would go and find people who were doing that and then get them arrested.
Yeah,
Undercover.
Austin.
The snitch.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
Because I'd rather preserve that mammoth than have a new condo.
You're the reason that you're trying to expose these Bigfoot bodies, and people are trying to keep it under wraps. But no,
Yeah, dude, they're just like, how
No,
are we
I
gonna-
want to preserve the bones. How am I the problem?
That's why they call it, they're like, this is Bigfoot's Bluff, and they have all these like houses up there, but little do they know that it's actually like a Bigfoot burial ground.
right?
And then all of a sudden you're just like hearing weird knocking noises and everything, and then that ghost of a Bigfoot just walks through your fucking living room. You're
First
like,
of all,
we gotta go.
Now we've got non-existent ghosts of non-existent animals.
Whoa,
Dude, if
what?
you thought Jesse
Back
got
up.
scared before, a ghost Bigfoot is going to terrify.
Especially if it comes in an apron.
Yeah, it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
It's like, don't worry, it's the mom one. She's friendly. I don't know, man.
But if you're still here when the father gets home,
I don't know. It's one of those things because it's like, yeah, it's like this guy is like, they sound animal enough for me to be like, I could see that happening. It is weird that it's like, okay, you happened upon the most classic American Bigfoot family you could have. You're like, here's the mom, and she's going, yeah, like what you're saying. They get the Brady Bunch thing, and let's just, start singing that
and
song.
this is
Yeah.
See, and I think what's more reasonable
Forest Friends
is that What's more reasonable is that he probably definitely ran into something out there on his expedition or whatever, but it was maybe like a bear or something like that. And then over time, he's just like, I got a campfire story for you. And then he just took bits and pieces and was just like, yeah, that's what it was.
And then in his old age, just having fun. I've committed now. This happened.
or maybe he was, because like the stories that people were telling were just like, there's things in the forest out there, right? So maybe he was just like making his own story about it.
It could be, especially when, and back to the, I'm sorry, but that nuclear family thing where I'm just like,
Yeah.
where
The fact
like,
that it's Henry and the
yeah, it's like it's
Hendersons
perfectly.
It's
or whatever.
it's
Henry and the Hendersons?
It's
Is that
the...
it?
It's
Henry
Henry. Yeah, it's
William Henry
but
Harrison.
it'd be the other way around. 'Cause
Henry Harrison
it'd be
Williamson.
The Henrys and a Harrison.
Harry's son.
Harry and the Hendersons, 1987.
Yeah, but it would be the Harrys and the Henderson.
And the Henderson.
Yeah, and the Henderson.
Yeah.
And the Ostman, or whatever. Ostman, what's his name?
Then the Ostman.
Paul, what's his name? Paul.
Alberto.
The last funny thing too, though, was just like like he's kind of tooting his own horn. We're just like, they're like, why do you think they got you? Why do you think they brought you home with them? And he's like, well, maybe because they wanted me to f their daughter. Like, did you hear that part? You didn't hear that part?
Yeah, I mean,
He's like,
maybe they were looking for someone to help continue the line.
yeah, like it's like, yeah, and I'm just like,
that's
I was a fit 30-year-old, but they trapped me in a very thin sleeping bag circa 1920 and took me up a mountain and then entrapped me for 6 days, but didn't entrap me because I kind of had free reign. But I stuck around because I like coffee.
yeah. And then it's weird because that would have been my whole thing. It's just like, okay, so they're not actively feeding me, which would be like, okay.
no, but they did feed him though.
I mean,
Yeah, they gave him roots.
You're right.
And let
You're
him
right.
brew
But
coffee.
I mean, it wasn't like he never told a story where it's like, and then they all sat down and like
and
passed
then we
around
had a nice ta-ta.
Yeah. I'm
know.
sorry you didn't get a 5-course meal, Patrick.
Yeah, but like but he's also cooking his own food. He's doing his own thing, which is interesting, because he's there for days.
Okay, but I think animals aren't, like unless it's like a cat. Even then, it doesn't bring you a cooked bird.
at this
you know?
time?
Okay. What?
Was he married?
It doesn't sound like he was.
A lonely old man in the woods.
Maybe he was
Well, I don't know
married.
how-
He was just trying to get away from his wife, and then she was like, "Why aren't you back yet?" He was like, "I was kidnapped by the Bigfoot."
And he went on some bender where he just got prostitutes and just went nuts.
But in reality, I was kidnapped by Bigfoot.
Yeah.
That is correct, my wife.
I still lean towards I think it's real.
I mean, I'm not
Who'da
doubting that
thought?
maybe something happened in that woods, but I don't think it went exactly like he was saying, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he had an encounter with an animal for sure. But
Or several. Like, it's just so funny to be like,
Not
he
a
had
Bigfoot,
He
necessarily.
he got, like a moose. He got trapped on a moose's, antler, and it pulled his sleeping bag 12 miles southwest of his.
it was a bear.
Yeah.
Grabbed his sleeping bag, just shook it,
And he
then
just woke up in some other place.
He was
and-
unconscious. He's like, what happened?
Him and all of his buddies were fresh back from World War I, and he went out camping and fishing instead of hanging out with the dudes. And
He
they were
just-
like, "We're gonna quit them."
Or was just like he just.
I
like-
mean, didn't we kind of have that plan once?
his wife was like, "How'd you go through 7 snuff boxes in 6 days?" And he's like, Bigfoot ate 4 of them."
Kidnap Jesse in his sleeping
over
bag.
the- yeah, dude.
Sling him over your shoulder.
That would be so fucking.
You
cool.
get it that far, and we'll come and support you, so
Yeah.
we can get him up the hill.
Carry him,
And then-
for 30 miles.
And then we're gonna dump him in the middle of this camp.
And then we all have costumes for us, and we're going to act like a perfect Bigfoot family.
Yep.
And we're going to scare the living daylight out of him.
Here's your bark apron.
Made it woven from the finest cedar threads.
It's exactly what I picture, man. Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Here's your
man.
copy of the Yeti Times.
Austin also believes in it. I can tell.
No.
No,
No,
tell me.
Austin-
What do you think happened then? You think he's just a liar?
Yeah, mostly. I don't know what happened.
What was your first theory you were saying? You were
Oh,
saying-
so they have hyper trichtophobia, or whatever, the werewolf disease where they get really hairy, and it's just a hills have eyes thing. They've just been up there living all Alabama style, passing down an incredibly rare pseudo-hereditary thing, and they have weird cancers.
But they also didn't know how to eat like normal food.
Yeah, because they have weird cancers, and they've been living in the forest screwing their cousins for who knows how long.
Well, I mean, do you know how hard it is to like capture another animal? Like when you're a human in the middle of nowhere, and your only option is berries and twigs,
or picking up a person and like basically their own
We were
packaging.
talking about earlier how they might eat the corpses. That fits in with Hills Have Eyes.
Well, yeah, but there's the thing: they didn't eat his corpse, which is interesting
because he didn't die.
Well,
that would have just been eating him.
Well, they should have just ate him. I've always wondered, because that's the other thing that you were talking about, where you're like,
to be that big and be on twigs and sticks. That seems.
Well, like you ever heard of the weird like the hunting 411 stuff?
Maybe.
Well, like it's like all about like the missing whatever.
Yeah,
those guys. You know, they're always like, well, and this is where I think that like the primatologists are kind of right. Where I'm like, what if you did just like there's a territorial like Bigfoot male that's roaming this area, and he's like his pack has moved on or whatever, and he's like outcasted, and then he finds like a couple like people who are just out hunting, gets kind of pissed off, and then murders them because he's a huge 8 foot tall.
I was about to say, okay, so
man.
he made it sound like they were vegetarians, and if that was
right,
which is like
they'd have to be like the whales of land animals.
Well, doesn't it take a lot for your like? If you're a species that is vegetarian, doesn't it take a lot for your body to acclimate to eating meat? Like,
I think that they're probably
you're not
omnivore.
if they're omnivorous,
I think they're omnivorous.
Then I don't know why they didn't eat our friend. If they're
because it was the summertime and they
exclusively
they just
herbivorous.
wanted berries.
They wanted the berries and those
tea.
those nice
if they're
sweet roots.
exclusively herbivorous,
roots.
I don't understand how they can be so large but eat as little as he described.
Well, because I've heard theories that they think that it does hunt like
and if
deer
it does
and
hunt,
aren't gorillas omnivores?
Most like modern apes can kind of eat certain stuff, but it's mostly meat.
Well, I don't know because so what am I trying to say? Not baboons because those are monkeys.
Like the great apes eat a lot of meat. The baboons
orangutans
eat a lot.
Well, no, I think orangutans are actually the only ones that are fully vegetarian. Looked at them, yeah.
Well, okay, and aren't pandas?
They only eat bamboo.
Exactly.
They only eat bamboo.
Those things get huge,
and
man.
they just have to constantly eat bamboo.
Yeah, but what's weird is that I think their size comes from the fact that they do that, and then they just like really sedentary sort of things.
Well, their body's adapted to it. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Koalas are like the same thing. They can only eat the like one leaf of that one tree, and yet they're.
Yeah, but they also have chlamydia, so.
And they smell terrible.
It's the chlamydia, man.
Chlamydia odor.
Yeah, that's like the telltale sign of like not dating somebody. If you smell chlamydia, get away.
What the?
I mean,
I'm not wrong.
If there is an olfactory response to your chlamydia, go to the doctor. Sweet Lord.
What's the answer on
chlamydia?
I don't know, man. I could see. I mean, the way he described it didn't make it seem like they were that much taller. Mm-hmm. But I mean, who knows, man?
It's weird because I think that like since it's an earlier story or like earlier in like the time period, and I'm like, okay,
they'll eat insects and bird eggs as well.
Yeah,
mostly fruit, but they'll eat a lot of other stuff.
Very good. I'm glad. So Bigfoots eat bird eggs too.
I mean, that makes sense, man. Right?
Yeah.
Dairy.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of protein.
I sure wish they'd leave any evidence of all this hunting and gathering. They'd have to.
Well, they eat everything, and then they make sure that they sling their shit really high into the trees.
They eat everything. They peel bark off and all that, and then they put it back on once they've gotten all the nutrients out, so we don't notice that.
It's
they've
like,
been at
man,
the tree.
this tree has a knitted sweater of birch bark.
And it says "Growl."
Yeah, it's like property of, or like made in.
Yeah.
Made in British Columbia.
Yeah,
It's just got a proofing stamp on it.
But it's just like a Bigfoot
just
fingerprint.
Nice.
Yeah. So I feel, I feel like it's real.
You feel like it's real, man.
I feel like it's real.
You really feel like
I really feel like it's real.
No way, Pat.
I do, and I feel like it's super weird because there are details that make me be like, oh, but also there's details in there that make me like,
okay,
man.
what detail is the one detail that you're just like, this is it. This is the proof. This is the solid.
The sagittal crest.
Really?
No.
What is it?
Mostly it's the fact that it's like, okay, like before then he's like, okay, I don't really believe in it, and then he does get picked up.
Okay, but that's every story, man. Like, you listen to any alien
I didn't
abduction,
believe it until they put the probe in my bunghole.
No.
any alien abduction story, they're always just like, I didn't believe in aliens before this. Like, I didn't even think it was real. And then they're just like, yeah, I was abducted by aliens. Like, I think
That makes a
what's his
pretty
name?
compelling story for someone who didn't believe in aliens,
Right.
but does believe in making a quick buck.
I don't know too though, and
Travis-
he didn't make any money off that.
Just because it didn't work doesn't mean he didn't try.
And he's
don't
got
know.
the fame, man. Maybe it's
But,
not
I mean,
about the money.
How
It's
was
just-
his monetary situation 30 years when
Well,
he
I
was
feel like
60? How was his monetary
He's living off the
situation?
land. That's the thing that I'm also like, okay, you know, like if it was like a New York businessman or something, like I went to the woods and then I need to sell my story to the New York Times, or this guy who's like, he's like, well, I go into the woods and that's what I like to do.
Okay, but maybe he's like, how old was he then? He was 30 when he was,
It's
and then when
like,
he told the story, he was what, like 50,
60s.
60? Yeah. So maybe he's just like, oh my God, Allison, shut up. maybe he's
Sorry, I'm trying to make up for Jesse.
maybe he was just like, man, I'm 60 and I haven't done anything with my life.
He's like, what was that story that old Indian told me all
Them
those years
devils
ago?
in the mountains. What if I'd found them?
Yeah.
What if they'd found me?
This is I'm going to be remembered. I'm set on this.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about it where I'm like, man, like it is interesting that, like, you know, like that was the first Bigfoot that ever was like, maybe I'll take this guy home in a sack.
That's another red flag, dude.
Except we don't know. He's the only one who made it out alive. Maybe they were like fattening him up, when, as you were saying.
Maybe they pick people up in sacks all the time.
Maybe now they're just like they've come to that conclusion. It's like, you know what, we don't need humans to mate with our daughters.
Okay, but
at
there's
all.
so many. That guy ruined the experience for everybody.
He was so wildly unattractive.
Yeah.
to the
It's
Yeah.
like people that he's like, no. They're like, it's like, Albert, you got a girlfriend? He's like, yeah, you wouldn't know her. She lives like 40 miles into the woods.
No way. The Bigfoots were just like, you know what? We were ready to serve up our youngest to him, and he just tried to shoot a gun and
tried to
ran
kill
off.
him.
Let's not mess with humans. They're dangerous.
Yeah, damn it. That's why everybody else doesn't fuck
And they
with them.
rung up the rest of the family and went, and everyone knew that, hey, yeah, don't mess with humans, dude. They shoot at
Well, I was
you.
going to say,
Yeah.
dude, yeah, like all of a sudden he's just like, Martha, that's why you don't follow an angry human. He just tried to poison me.
Well, Philip, that's why you don't bring one back to camp.
Well, that was the other thing, too, is he said that like when they dumped him out, that they were having all their little like chatter, and they're just like, blah, 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 blah. And it looked like he was like, was the mom pissed off that I brought home a human? Or?
No, you can't keep him.
Yes.
I just want a pet. I'll walk him. I'll feed him.
Come on, it'll make the kids happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, I don't know, man. It doesn't. There's something.
Maybe Mary can fuck it and have a kid. Who knows?
Yeah, that's the reason
Is
why
that-
I don't have a Bigfoot family right now. You know,
It's 'cause-
I can't find love in regular humans, but Bigfoot's is where it's at. So I'm just gonna die lonely. Thanks
Yeah.
to what's this guy's name? Paul.
Adult fur finder.
everything but Albert.
Yeah.
Everything but Albert. That's like an equivalent to Albertsons. It's just a marketplace. Everything but Albert.
It was a marketplace. Pour one out for Albertson.
Yeah. And then the Bigfoots carried it off.
Yeah.
In a sack.
Well, what a good one. to end.
Albertsons went under. What a good week.
We might have to touch back on it with Jesse so he can be like, nah, man, I believe Patrick.
I think he will. He'll listen to it. We'll send it to him. He'll remember. Once he finds a place to live, tell him to go live with the
The
Bigfoots.
Bigfoots.